Sporting Journal Radio, presented by Onyx.
All right, it's that time of year, ladies and gentlemen, where it becomes tough to go hunting or fishing, or tough to make the decision. Do you go hunting? Do you go fishing? I try to do both, try to do it all. It gets tough to do that, but the fishing can be so good this time of year, and the nights are starting to get a little bit cooler. The days are going to get a little bit shorter, and your fall patterns are going to start coming into effect when it comes to fishing. And Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism is going to join us now to talk about fall fishing up at Lake of the Woods in the Rainy River. Joe, how you doing?
Hey, Brett, I'm doing well.
Before we get into that, though, you're going to Michigan here this week.
Yeah. Actually, so I'm pretty active in an organization that you're aware of called GLOW, and that stands for Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers. And really, what it is, it's a group of outdoor media combined with outdoor corporates and destinations that all get together and have a big old conference. And you can understand the mutual wins there and the importance of the relationships and things. I'm a board member in the organization, and we're going to be putting our hat in the ring for a future annual conference, which we have hosted before. And I don't know, I've got a notification that I won an award this year, so I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an article or a video or what it is, but that's one of the things that GLOW does is they recognize, the outdoor professionals and some of the work they do. And I know you've received awards from a GLOW before, Brett, and so it's just it's a good week, and so a lot to prepare for, a lot to handle when I'm out there. But I tell you, when it's all said and done, it's a great group of like-minded people, and a lot of them certainly come and visit Lake of the Woods.
I received a notification that I won an award this year too, and I'm.
Congrats. Cool.
Thank you. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it next week. Unfortunately, I was trying to get it done, and I'm still holding out hope that I might try to get up there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. But Joe, I submitted one of our interviews on this show right here, so maybe we're an award-winning team here. I'm just saying.
Well, you don't think that, so you don't think that interview hurt you too bad, huh?
you probably helped it quite a bit, let's be honest. But,
well, that's great. I'll tell you what, all kidding aside, I have a chance to see what you put into this, and Dan behind the scenes, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes to make a good show. So kudos, and it's part of being recognized by your peers. It's important.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I do. We don't give Dan enough credit, and he's really increased his role here. And because he's family, I don't have to pay him for it, which is nice. But no, Dan is doing so much.
He would agree.
Yeah. Dan is doing so much for the show, and a lot of what you see now is I've become a lot hands off now on the show, which is nice for me because it helps me focus on being just mediocre instead of really bad. And Dan is doing a lot of the work behind the scenes now to make this show really shine. So nice job, Dan, by the way. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Joe, let's talk fall fishing. Lake of the Woods, of course, gets really good. The Rainy River gets really good. I saw another video that you put on social media this week about the shiner run taking place in the river. And that's kind of a neat process how they get those shiners there.
It's so cool, Mother Nature. And, as soon as one of the experts, and there's a lot of experts out there that really do understand Lake of the Woods and the Rainy River with all due respect, much more so than I do. But I'll tell you, as soon as somebody thinks they know something, Mother Nature will surprise them. Only Mother Nature truly knows. Well, I wonder how the walleye run's going to be this year. Wow, the water in the river is real low, so I'm not optimistic. Well, the shiner's already run it. So who freaking knows, Yeah. Honestly, I mean, when the water's running hard, sometimes the shiners run intermittently. I mean, but I can tell you this, is that the shiners are already running. And I'm already getting some reports, not hot and heavy, but I am getting some reports of, people catching walleyes on the Rainy River. So some people are starting to target them now, knowing the shiners are in the river. The other thing that happens is that there's just a transitional fall movement of walleyes in the lake in general. A lot of the walleyes will set up on the South Shore. Some set up adjacent to streams and rivers like the Rainy, Bostic Creek. Some set up adjacent to bays because shiners will go in there and run sometimes, especially up at the northwest angle. And there's just some fall spots, and that fall pattern is just starting to come to fruition. They're still pulling spinners, but even pulling spinners, some of the guys are saying now that those walleyes are actually hitting a little bit better on some days on a spinner and a minnow versus a spinner and a crawler. So you can see things are starting to turn, and it won't be very long. In fact, I wouldn't doubt if some people are already doing it, where jigging with a frozen emerald shiner or a fathead, either one. But jigging will take over the preferred method of fishing for walleyes, I guess the way to say it. But that's going to be happening real quick. And then you still pull cranks all season long. You pull cranks until the ice comes. But jigging is going to be a main presentation.
Those resorts up there, they're allowed to net those shiners now, right? And that becomes a big supply for their bait throughout the year, correct?
It is, yeah. So it all has to do with whether you have a bait license or not, and you have to
Sure.
be authorized and know what to do and how to do it. You can't just go net shiners because of there's VHS disease and minnows and other things. They keep track of AIS, but yes. So if they can get the minnows, they will get the minnows. And then what they do is everybody has a different recipe on how to keep. Some resorts will keep them in the fall alive the best they can. And that way you can buy live shiners when you're fishing, fall fishing. Some will. Everybody has a different recipe on how to properly freeze them. Some flash freeze them and lay them flat and flash freeze them. Some pour a certain kind of salt into a 5-gallon pail of water with the minnows and then freeze them. I mean, everybody has a different recipe. Some say that you can't harvest minnows yet because they get mushy when you freeze them. Some say that no problem as long as you treat them a certain way. Again, everybody has a different method. And I will say this, some years you get the shiners, some years you don't get the shiners. Some years you get the shiners and they're too small, so you don't really harvest them. Other years it's bonsai and you fill your freezers as full as you can get them, cover you for the winter and spring. So, if you can get them, and I'll tell you the other thing too, just like anything in life, there's so much that happens behind the scenes that people never know.
Yeah.
You should see these bait guys and gals, whether it's from a bait store, whether it's from a resort or whatever, you should see the effort they go through in getting these shiners. You'll see videos I'll put up of thousands of shiners jumping around in a net, or you'll see swirling under a light they have at the end of their dock. That's when it's good. You don't see the sleepless nights where they're out working and get nothing for their efforts. That's more common than not. So they really work hard, and they got to constantly be checking, because if they don't check their nets and there was a big run, then you've missed out.
Yeah.
So a lot of them will set their alarm in the middle of the night and check periodically a couple times throughout the night. And if there's nothing there, they try to go back to bed. I mean, it's really it's not easy. If it's that easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Do you have that video, Dan, of the net and the light? You're trying to get it. I know we had a little technical glitch there earlier, but we're going to try to play that, because I think it's just kind of neat how I remember the first time I went up there in the fall, and it was after dark, and I walked down on the dock just to kind of look around, and it's one of my first times I'd been up there, and I saw this light on the end of the dock, and I was like, what the heck is this thing? And all these minnows swimming underneath it. Yeah, there it is. And that's how they get their shiners.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you the other thing too. There's been a couple years ago, I went down to the end of the dock just to see if the shiners were running, because everybody has their lights out as the fall goes on, and I went just to check the light out, and the shiners were swirling under this light. It was so cool. Every once in a while, you hear a big splash where there's a walleye or something else chasing them at night. Well, and it was cool because I would happen to be on the Rainy River. Across the Rainy River to my left in Canada, you could hear a pack of wolves howling.
Oh, neat.
Back over my right shoulder, you could hear domestic dogs from houses barking at the wolves. Across the river, straight across in that kind of a bay, and it's Canadian side, huge flock of Canadian geese were there honking away a stage for the night while they're migrating. And then, of course, over my head, you could hear that.
Ducks.
The divers were migrating over at night over my head, bluebills, and I would imagine bluebills and other kind of divers. But, the point of it is that, Mother Nature kicks in the fall, and it's what creates tradition, whether it's hunting or fishing. And there's a lot of people that go up to the Rainy, and, by the time you hear the fish are running, you're too late. You almost just have to be there and see how it goes. And normally you're going to find some fish, whether it's in the river or if it's a nice day, take it on lake. I'll tell you the other thing about fall fishing is that if you have a 14 or a 16-foot boat on the Rainy River, you'll be golden. I mean, it's no problem fishing, and they'll fish that whole stretch from the mouth of the Rainy River, all the way to Birchdale. It's about a 42-mile stretch of navigable water where those walleyes can be hanging out. And there's so many nooks and crannies. You'll have 6, 8, 10, 15 small school over in this piece of structure. You'll have a big school swimming through if you happen to whack them. I mean, it's cool. And then, of course, you get mixed in with the smallies, the pike, and the sturgeon accidentally. And it's kind of a fun atmosphere.
Real quick, Joe, where are we at with fishing on the Rainy River when it comes to the border through the river there?
Well, the way it works right now is that if you fish the U.S. side, you're fishing Minnesota, no problem. And the definition is from land border to land border, halfway across the river is Canada. That's the international line. So normally there's a line on your GPS if you have a GPS. Otherwise, you can just eyeball it for the most part. Now, if you want to fish in Ontario waters, as long as you're not touching land, touching a dock, exchanging goods or services, or anchoring up, you can go on the Canadian side without calling or checking in. And then you don't need a passport or any other credentials you need. If you're going to touch land, just like passing into Canada now you need to have the ArriveCAN app. Now you have to have your vaccination card uploaded to that. You need to have your COVID test. It's less than 72 hours. It's a PCR or a molecular test. And, of course, your credentials with your passport card, or a driver's license and a birth certificate. So, when you're driving up to the Northwest Angle through Canada, there's a couple of hoops you have to jump through. But really, if you're vaccinated, that's the biggest one. I just helped a group set up a trip, Brett, that a couple of people in the group decided not to get vaccinated, their choice. But they still wanted to go to the angle because they hear how good the fishing is up there in the fall. So they're going to go across via charter boat, and they're going to just take the round trip charter up to a U.S. resort and have an incredible trip, and they're good to go. We also have Lake Country Air, which is the float plane service that can take you across to avoid customs also.
Is there still a bait situation with the border?
Yeah, well, it's only a situation if you're an American. Because if you're in Canada, you can buy bait. So, if right now, as of October 2020, nobody really knew it until we were able to go fishing into Canada again. But as of October 2020, the CFIA, the Canada Food Inspection Agency, said no bait at all over the border. Not live, not dead, not frozen. It used to be that you could bring dead minnows over. You could bring frozen shiners over. You used to be able to bring live night crawlers packed in bedding as long as they weren't in soil. Well, no, all of that's off. So what most folks are doing is going up with their different kind of plastics on a jig, or if they're casting for muskies, they're not using live bait anyway, typically. In the fall, some people use live suckers, of course. But otherwise, they're using the plastics on a jig. And, a lot of people mentioned to me they were using Berkley products, Power Bait and Gulp, and they said, man, we used a black and a white to mimic a shiner. Did that ever work good? And then they also said that, if you get hit and your bait comes off and you miss that walleye is still hot. Mm-hmm. You still have your bait on with a plastic. You'll get a second chance at that fish. So that's actually, and you can cast and you can snap it more and do things you couldn't do with live bait. So pros and cons, but it's working out real nice.
Yeah, we're getting into more and more plastics when it comes to walleye fishing. But so just to be clear, like if you're fishing the Rainy and you want to fish the Ontario side, even that situation, you can't bring any shiners with you across that, right?
Exactly. If you decide to fish the Ontario side of the Rainy River or Lake of the Woods, no bait whatsoever, no live, frozen, or dead bait. You have a different length limit on your fish. You can only keep typically a couple of walleyes. I mean, you got to have an Ontario fishing license. You got to have an outdoors card. You just have to know before you slide over that border and start fishing. If you're navigating into Canada waters just along that edge because you're avoiding boats or something, that's no problem. You can navigate, no problem. But if you're fishing, then all the fishing rules apply.
Well, at least the fish don't know the border's there, so you don't have to cross the border to fish, thankfully. All right, Joe.
They don't have maple leaves on
them? They don't have GPS. And they don't have their vaccinations, so they got to stay on one side or the other. All right.
We'll keep it safe. We'll keep it clean, right?
Yeah. If people want to plan a trip up there this fall or start thinking about ice fishing at Lake of the Woods, what should they do?
You know what? Our Facebook page has current info, and that's Lake of the Woods Tourism. Otherwise, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Northern Minnesota's Walleye Factory is a year-round world-class fishing destination. The perfect getaway this summer is just a short drive to Lake of the Woods. Fish Big Traverse Bay, the Rainy River, or visit the unique Northwest Angle. To catch big fish, you have to go where the big fish are. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.